It was like shades of Ali the way he was moving. Why can't that be appreciated? What the hell is going on?
Jake Paul thinks he can beat Canelo in 3 years' time. Let me fully read out to you guys what Jake Paul said. I'm coming and I'm beating Canelo in 3, I'm not going to say that word, years. I put that on my mama. Congrats to Dimitri Bivol. He showed that Canelo is easily beatable by a bigger man, which is what I've known for a long time. Believe in yourself, kids, and don't listen to those British, also I'm not going to say that word, like Eddie Hearn. Now, I'm one to say that you can be a very skillful fighter, a very technically good fighter, like Saul Canelo Alvarez. However, there comes a point where you move up so much and so high in weight classes that the sheer size of the opposition you're fighting causes so much problems where their size alone negates your skill. And that's what I believe we saw in the Canelo versus Dimitri Bivol match. That Canelo moved up so high in weight that Bivol was just able to take his punches and inflict damage on Canelo because the guys in the higher weight classes have more punch resistance. Now, from what I know, Jake Paul campaigns at, around 190 pounds. So, or I've even seen him weigh in about 194 pounds. So he's just lower than a cruiserweight, which is 200 pounds. But I feel as if Jake Paul is just pulling shenanigans. I do not believe that Jake Paul can beat Canelo. I know he will call me a hater and a doubter, but come on, let's be serious. Canelo is one of the best, if not the best, in boxing. And Jake Paul, although he is gradually improving his resume, fighting, NBA players and fighting UFC fighters, then, trying to fight Tommy Fury, you do got to give him credit for that, because he is gradually stepping up in opposition, which is what you're supposed to do as a fighter. I just don't believe he has the talent to genuinely get one over Saul Canelo Alvarez. Because it's interesting. I'm one to say that Jake Paul is good for boxing, and I'll tell you why I think he's good for boxing. I don't believe him trying to take off Mayweather's hat is good for boxing necessarily, but I just think that his shenanigans in general bring so much attention to the sport of boxing. If you think about it, from these YouTubers, how many people came to boxing off the bat of learning about KSI, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, guys like that, Deji. So although these guys won't go very far in boxing, though Jake Paul might do something, you got to watch out for him because he definitely does have, some power and some skills, though we just got to see him fight more quality opposition. Although I believe these guys bring attention to the sport, they need to stay in their lane. They shouldn't be calling out and trying to, annoy guys like Mayweather, Canelo, and other elite fighters across all weight classes. From what I know, that some fighters actually seem a bit bitter that, about Jake Paul and Logan Paul because they're coming into boxing and in their first fight they're getting massive paydays. So credit to Jake Paul, credit to Logan Paul, and anyone who can just come in their first fight a pay-per-view fighter like Floyd Mayweather and get a big payday. But I think they're getting big paydays based off the hype that they have and people wanting to see them get knocked out. It's almost kind of like Mayweather. Mayweather kind of milked the boxing fans. He would play the villain role perfectly and he would make a lot of money. And that's what I think Jake Paul is trying to do, kind of following a similar blueprint by playing the villain role, because surely by now he knows that he's not liked by a lot of people. I personally do not like Jake Paul because I do not dislike Jake Paul, sorry. I don't have anything against him. I think he is good for boxing, and I'm not going to hate on a person who's never done anything wrong to me. I'm just, that's not the way I roll, but Jake Paul knows exactly what he's doing here, in calling out Canelo, calling out Eddie Hearn, saying that he can easily beat Canelo. Although I think size does play a, big factor in fights, Canelo is still way too skillful, and Jake Paul's size won't be able to negate the amount of skill Canelo has if they were to fight. And I think because people haven't seen Jake Paul lose, that he's going to continue to do, decent pay-per-view money, and decent pay-per-view sales, sorry, until, he's lost, and then I guess the public will be satisfied. But yeah, whilst he's active, whilst he's still winning his fights, people are going to be tuning in, because the reality is that people want to see Jake Paul get chinned. Whether you like it or not, that's just how I see it. As I said, I don't have nothing against Jake Paul. Best of luck to him in his career. He's not going to get the Canelo fight, because Canelo wants legacy fights, and this is just not a legacy fight. It would make a lot of money, but, people wouldn't take Canelo seriously, because Canelo's trying to chase belts and legacy, and it looks like that Canelo is going to rematch Dimitri Bivol. He'll activate his rematch clause, which is very weird, by the way, guys. Should challengers, because I know Canelo was the A side in this fight, but he was still the challenger. They were fighting for he was fighting for Bivol's belt. It wasn't the other way around. Bivol was not fighting for Canelo's belt. So should a challenger really have a rematch clause inserted in the contract? It's just crazy the amount of rematch clauses there are in the sport of boxing.